Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is SYAHMINA binti RAHIM and my matric number is 20238737726. Now, I will explain about the definitions of idealism. Idealism is a theory based on the belief that human nature is not inherently bad and that states can work together to achieve common goals. It relies on principles of identity and reciprocity to explain how peace and cooperation can be achieved, such as through forming international organizations and fostering international cooperations. However, idealism has faced challenges, particularly following the failure of League of Nations and outbreak of World War II, which leads to the crisis of confidence among its advocates. The elements of idealism have significantly influenced subsequent theory of international relations, and scholars who identify with or sympathetic to the school of thought remain active in the field.
Now let's move to when the idealism started. Idealism was tied to the interwar period. As we know, there is a huge destruction happened during World War I. Idealism emerged at that time as a means to stop the wars and improve peace by establishing organization by using international law, norms and diplomacy. Basically, to be more precise, idealism at that time represent the early philosophical and religious texts proposing ideas of cooperation, peace, and justice among nations. This perspective believed that international relations can be improved, leading to a more peaceful and cooperative world order. Next, who introduced the concept of idealism? In general, idealism was introduced by Plato, which is the ancient Greek philosopher. He is also one of the emergence of idealism in philosophy. Plato, also known as father of idealism, because he proposed that there is universal idea in the world beyond the world of perceived reality. For example, Plato represents the theory of forms under his famous work, The Republic, which is central to his idealist worldview. Plato believed that everything in the world is like imperfect copies of perfect forms that exist in the higher realm. He thought that by thinking deeply, we can understand these perfect forms, which is where true knowledge comes from. It can be easily understood using an imagination. Now, imagine you have a perfect idea of a triangle in your mind. No matter how you draw a triangle in real world, it will never be as perfect as the one in your mind. Meanwhile, idealism in international relations, famously known by Woodrow Wilson, which is the 28th President of the United States, is one of the prominent figures associated with the development of idealism in international relations. The development he advocates is the new approach to IR based on principles whereby the world must be safe for democracy. Basically, Wilson's views were based on the future welfare of humankind. The example that shows the Wilson principle is at the close of World War I. Wilson proposed his idea for League of Nations, the first international organization whose principal mission was to maintain world peace by promote cooperation and prevent conflict.
Next, we will continue with the comparison between realism and idealism. The first comparison is in nature of reality. Realism asserts that reality exists independently of humans' perceptions. It suggests that there is an objective, external world that is regardless of whether humans perceive it or not. According to the realist, object and event have properties and relationships that exist regardless of our awareness of them. For example, a mountain exists whether if there is nobody there to perceive it. Meanwhile, idealism, on the other hand, proposes that reality is fundamentally mental or spiritual in nature. It perceives that the external world is in some sense dependent on human consciousness or mental processes. Idealists argue that reality is constructed or shaped by the mind and our perceptions. In the idealist view, the existence of the mountain is contingent upon someone perceiving it or thinking about it. The second comparison is epistemology, known as theory of knowledge. Realism emphasizes the possibility of objective knowledge about the external world. It suggests that humans can gain knowledge about reality through observations, reasons, and empirical investigations. Reality believes that there is a truth about the world that exists independently of the individual perceptions or belief. Other than that, idealism often highlights the subjective nature of knowledge. It argues that our understanding of reality is mediated through our perceptions, thought, and consequences. Idealists may question the possibility of objective knowledge about an external reality independence of the mind, suggesting that our knowledge is inherently shaped by our mental processes and perspective.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day to our beloved lecturer and my fellow friends. So, I will continue a comparison between realism and idealism from SYAHMINA. So, the third comparison between realism and idealism is existence of universe. Realism typically accept the existence of universe, which are abstract concepts or properties that exist independently of individual instances. Realists believe that concepts such as beauty, justice, or goodness have an objective existence beyond individual perceptions or interpretations. However, idealism may interpret universe differently. Some form of idealism view universe as mental construct or product of human thought rather than as independent entities. In the idealist perspective, concepts like beauty or justice are seen as products of human cognitions and may not have an existence outside of the mind. So the last one is relation to materialism. Under realism mind, it often aligns with materialism, which asserts that the physical world is primary and that mental phenomena are either reducible to material processes or are epiphenomena of the physical world. Realists tend to emphasize the importance of the material world in shaping human experience and understanding. But idealism contrasts with materialism by emphasizing the primacy of mind or consciousness over material reality. Idealists argue that the material world is in some way dependent on or shaped by mental processes, suggesting that consciousness plays a central role in defining reality. Hi guys, it's me again, HAZIM. So I will explain to you about our limitation of idealism. So limitation of idealism have four, which is epistemology challenges, practical implications, difficulty in explaining change, and incompatibility with science. So for epistemological challenges, idealism's central issue in Mirage is the validity of perception. How can we differentiate between real perception and mere illusion when reality is constructed by the mind? This challenge highlights the impossibility of idealists in constructing a coherent understanding of how we acquire knowledge of the world and how to distinguish between subjective experience and objective reality. Other than that, in practical implications, in the realm of politics and social policy, idealism may encounter limitations when confronted with practical challenges and material concerns. While ideals such as justice and equality are important, addressing social issues often requires attention to material conditions such as poverty, healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Idealistic approaches that overlook these practical realities may fail to effectively address the needs and concerns of individuals and communities. Furthermore, in difficulty in explaining change, the process of change and development in the natural world poses a challenge for idealism. If reality is constructed by the mind, how do we account for phenomena such as biological evolution, cultural evolution, and technological progress? Idealism may struggle to provide a satisfactory explanation for how new ideas, organisms, and technologies emerge over time, as it tends to prioritize the realm of ideas and consciousness over material processes. So the last but not least is incompatibility with science. Idealism may struggle to reconcile its claims with the finding of scientific inquiry, particularly in fields such as physics, astronomy, and biology. For example, the vast amount of empirical evidence supporting the Big Bang theory and the evolution of species contradicts the idealist notion that reality is fundamentally mental. This conflict highlights the challenge idealism faces in accommodating scientific explanations of the natural world that rely on objective observation and experimentation.
Next, we will talk about the key supporters of idealism theory. The first one is Plato. Plato is an ancient Greek philosopher. He widely regarded as one of the earliest proponents of idealism. In his philosophical dialogues, especially in works like The Republic and Phaedo, Plato presents the theory of forms or ideas. According to Plato, the ultimate reality consists of abstract, perfect, and eternal forms or ideas, which are the true essence of things. Plato's theory of forms bear resemblance to idealism in the sense that it posits the existence of non-material reality that transcends the physical world. Reality for Plato is fundamentally mental or conceptual, grounded in the realm of forms rather than material substances. This perspective aligns with the idealist notion that reality is shaped by the mind or consciousness. Next, George Berkeley. George Berkeley is an Irish philosopher of the 18th century. Is also often considered as one of the modern proponents of idealism, particularly in subjective idealism. In his philosophical work, especially in a treatise concerning the principles of human knowledge and three dialogues between Hylas and Philonous, Berkeley argues that material objects have no existence independent of the mind perceiving them. Lastly, Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson is the 28th President of the United States. He often associated with idealism theory, particularly in the realm of international relations. Wilsonian idealism, or also known as Wilsonianism, refers to Wilson's approach to foreign policy, which was characterized by a belief in the promotion of democracy, self-determination, and the establishment of peaceful international order.
Impact of idealism. Idealism has had a significant impact on international relations. This is because it highlights the role that ideas, values, and ideas play in determining state conduct and international relations. Idealists believe that the cornerstone of international relations should be high ideals such as respect for human rights, the rule of law, and the promotion of international cooperation. Also, idealists often stress the importance of international law and institutions in resolving conflict and promoting global stability. They support the idea of a rule-based international order where disputes are settled peacefully through negotiation and legal means. And lastly is idealism emphasizes the possibility and desirability of cooperation among nations for mutual benefit. This can lead to the formation of alliance, international organization, and treaty aimed at promoting peace, security, and development.
I will continue with the type of idealism. There are two types of the idealism that will be discussed in this presentation, which is the first one is objective idealism. What is objective idealism? Objective idealism persists that reality exists independently of our perception, but that it is fundamentally mental or spiritual in nature. In other words, reality is grounded in some form of universal consciousness or mind. According to objective idealism, the external world is real, but its existence is dependent on an underlying mental or spiritual reality. For example, German philosopher George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel is often associated with objective idealism. In Hegel philosophy, reality is seen as the unfolding of universal spirit or absolute idea through a dialectical process. According to Hegel, the external world is an expression of this absolute idea, and human consciousness participates in this larger cosmic process. For the second type of idealism, we will talk about subjective idealism. So, what is subjective idealism? Subjective idealism suggests that reality is entirely dependent on the mind or consciousness. In this view, the external world has no independent existence or outside of our perception and experiences. Reality is constructed by the mind, and different individuals may perceive reality differently. For instance, one of the most famous proponents of subjective idealism is in the 19th century philosophers Bishop George Berkeley. Berkeley argued that material objects have no existence independent of the mind perceiving them. He famously stated, "To be is to be perceived." According to Berkeley, objects exist only when they are being perceived by a mind, whether it be the mind of a human being or the mind of God. In summary, objective idealism asserts that reality has fundamental mental or spiritual nature independent of individual minds, while subjective idealism holds that reality is entirely dependent on the perceptions and experiences of individual minds.
The idealist approach in international relations emphasizes global collaboration over rivalry between countries. It advocates for resolving conflicts through diplomacy and negotiation rather than through force or coercion. Idealists see power as undesirable and believe it should be abolished. However, critics argue that idealists overlook the role of power and assume perfect compatibility of interests in international relations, which may lead to a naive understanding of complex political dynamics. Criticism of idealism in international relations centers on several key points. Firstly, it ignores power politics. Idealism tends to overlook the importance of power in international relations, assuming that diplomacy and cooperation can solve conflicts without adequately considering the underlying power dynamics between states. Number 2, overemphasis on human reason. Critics argue that idealism places too much faith in human rationality and the ability of states to behave creatively, neglecting the influence of emotions, national interests, and historical grievances in shaping international behavior. Number 3 is neglect self-seeking behavior of states. Idealism's focus on international institutions and shared values can lead to a disregard for the self-interest and competitive nature of states, which may undermine its ability to accurately assess and address the motives driving state action. Number 4, rejects realist thesis on power struggle. Idealists strongly oppose the realist perspective that views the struggle of power as inherent and unavoidable in international relations. Critics argue that idealism's rejection of this thesis may result in a naive approach to addressing power dynamics and conflict resolution on the global stage.
And for the conclusion is the concept of idealism in international relations championed by philosophers like Plato and Immanuel Kant. Accentuates the importance of values, ideal, and international cooperation over power politics. Why idealism has played a significant role in promoting values such as human rights and the rule of law. It faced criticism for its perceived idealistic nature and its tendency to overlook power relations. In contrast, Aristotle's realism placed a heavy emphasis on power dynamic and inherent power struggle with international politics, offering a contrasting perspective to idealistic approach.